Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel. And today we have with us another special guest, and he goes by the name of Charles Gellman. Now, Charles is the CEO and co-founder of HiDO Health. He's also a fellow podcaster with interviews from notable university professors, leading researchers, and forward-thinking podcast hosts. He's one of the top voices on AI-assisted robotics, digital health, and the impact on healthcare. And he was recently featured in a full-feature documentary, AI Robotics, the HiDO Story. This is a really fun interview. One of the things I like to showcase on this show are people that get into this space of medtech and then find something that they want to commandeer. Whether it's an invention, whether it's being assigned to a new opportunity with a company that needs leadership. It's so nice to be able to speak with guests that have been long enough in this space that they now are in a position to be part of something new and game-changing, or again, lead something new and game-changing. And this is exactly what Charles gets to share with us today. But I am not going to say any more. I'm going to save it for the interview. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that are doing things differently in the medical sales space. And I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Hey, Charles, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Samuel. How's your day going so far?
Fantastic. No complaints. So, Charles, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
So my name is Charles Gellman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of HiDO Health. My background's in data science. So what we do is we specialize in robotic devices to help people take care of themselves at home without the assistance of others.
Okay, I like it. So let's break that down a little bit. So does this mean that you're selling to providers that are selling patients on taking these devices home, or are you selling directly to the consumers?
So this is not a DTC product. We sell directly to payers, and the payers isolate the patients that are struggling at home that happen to cost the most amount of medical spend. So we focus on helping enable folks, for example, that have congestive heart failure, that they're on multiple medications. They might have, some health inequities at home. Let's say it's a socioeconomically disadvantaged, or it's a bad area or minority, and then a combination of different underlying disease states. We enable them to care for themselves by leveling the playing field, by having a robotic device that essentially is like a portable doctor in a box to help assist them care for themselves.
Wow. Now, you say you sell to payers. There's people listening right now that don't really understand what that means. Give us a little background on what it means to sell to the payers and how it ultimately gets to the patient.
So the payers select patients based upon the medical spend. Now, depending upon the level of severity of the illness of that patient, they have utilization of hospitalizations, emergency room services, and also provider utilizations. So when the payers look at folks with chronic disease states, they look at the total cost of care, and then they have to manage that population based upon all of the premiums spread across the healthy patients, the ones that are struggling, and then the ones that are actually in the hospital. And what we do is we isolate the folks that are struggling the most, and then the payers are selecting those patients for us to deploy the robotic devices to help them alleviate some of those high costs.
Wow. So, okay. So what does that look like then? Walk us through. Well, actually, let's walk it back a little bit. So you're the CEO, you have this entire company. What is your company made up of? Is it large, small, sales force? No, talk to us a little bit.
Yeah, so we focus primarily on R&D and engineering. So the majority of the folks are really on the engineering side of the house, whether that be mechanical, biomedical engineering, or software design. We actually just hired on 3 sales folks. So I'm very excited. Those are all folks within my network that I've done business with in the past, and very excited to bring them on. So we're looking for some fast growth with some major health payers and self-funded health plans in the future. And it's instrumental to have quality sales folks that can tell the story to others and broadcast the messaging and awareness. And you have to be highly skilled at conversations, as well as being able to pivot the conversation based upon the audience's reactions. So this is a very, very defined skill set.
Sure. So walk us through that then. What does a day in the life of a sales professional for your company look like?
Every day is different. Nothing is the same. What I would say is that the foundational knowledge of the salesperson is what the core foundation is, but it's a lot of the day-to-day interactions are reaching out to executive leaders, telling them the story of what the future can be, in addition to showing them what robotics technologies can enable patients to do, and being able to tell that entire story, why it's so important from a patient standpoint, but also being able to tell them from a financial standpoint, why it's important to them. And then being able to have that intellectual aptitude to wrap that story around of why it's so important for both parties to engage in a particular type of sale.
Wow. So then your sales reps are calling insurance companies, the payers, right? And I guess they're trying to get access to the C-suite within those insurance companies. So this is a phone-based type of sale, right?
It could be either or. So I believe in whatever it takes. So if it's a phone or video or it's face-to-face, they need to go to conventions and go elbow to elbow if they need to talk to people in person. Generally speaking, these are complex sales cycles. So some of the folks that may be listening to this, if they're a little bit newer to medical sales, there's some transactional sales, which could be several months, but there's other sales, which are complex sales cycles that could be anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending upon how high up and if it's an enterprise B2B sale. And this would be an enterprise B2B sale.
Wow, 2 to 5 years. How long have you guys been doing your thing?
We've been around for 5 years.
5 years. So basically you have some sales that just closed that you started when you guys started.
Yes. So as you are building the plane and flying it, you're also in parallel paths selling the plan and the technology, and then they should come together as one.
Awesome. So, I think this is unique because it's not often that people know about, these types of services that you guys offer to payers. I don't even think there's a lot of people that don't know that payers buy these types of devices for patients. Talk to us a little bit about how you got into this. Is this something that you've always known when you entered medical sales? Did you work on a certain side that allowed you to see this? Or is this a new opportunity that you just tried to get in front of?
Yeah, so my background's in data science. So my master's degree is at clinical informatics at UC Davis Medical Center. I did a post-bachelorate pre-med program at UC Berkeley, also a mentor at StartX Med for some Stanford-based startups. I also started my career with Johnson & Johnson, being exposed to the pharma side, then went to medical device, also helped Premier out with some GPO stuff and Wolters Kluwer software. So I've always been within the medical arena, a variety of different companies. And I stumbled across a couple of different variabilities that exist within healthcare, and those underlying foundations of healthcare where I thought that there were challenges that nobody ever solved. And that was, what does the blueprint for health look like? How do we figure out which cocktails and medications elicit the best outcomes based upon disease, age, gender, race, location, and some of the other social disparities of health? And has anybody really solved that? So before I even started HiDO, which stands for Health Information Data Outcomes, I wanted to see if a technology existed that had data to present so I could then extrapolate that and share a good gold standard of care across organizations across the country. And
what was the closest technology that did exist for this?
They don't.
Nothing. Nothing.
There's reminders on your phone app. There's some devices that dispense pills. There's really nothing that gives you 100% confidence in the data, so you can extrapolate whether or not medications are taken or missed, and then correlating that with blood work and ER visits and hospitalizations. So I had zero intent to do this. I have no interest in pill dispensing at all. That was even on the radar. But because I was trying to figure out a different idea and solution, it thrust me into the medical device space. And I happened to know a number of engineers out of Stanford, and they went down this crazy rabbit hole with me. And now we're here talking to you today in your audience.
Hey, I'll take it. That sounds amazing. So, let's dig a little deeper though into these devices. You brought up congestive heart failure earlier. Give us another example of a disease, walk us through. The patient goes to their provider. Suddenly they're in this position that you guys can help. Mm-hmm. Then their insurance, walk us through the whole thing all the way down to it's now in their living room or wherever it is and taking care of them.
Yeah. So a patient would already be hospitalized or were hospitalized within the previous 12 months, and they probably have an ER visit or two. These are the folks that could be struggling with congestive heart failure. Maybe they're hypertensive diabetics. Maybe they had a stroke, or they have mild to moderate dementia. There could be a number of different chronic disease states that could be a good fit for the HiDO device. Once the payer, a health plan, selects the specific patient, they would be contacted by a case manager or a nurse within the plan, suggesting that they have a device, and it's free of cost to them, no cost, that will help alleviate some of the complications that they have with medication taking, so we can reduce their exposure to the hospital and the ER. And once the patient also agrees, then what we do is a HiDO employee will come to their house. They'll set up the device. They'll set it up. It's got Face ID or a passcode. The patient will then go up to the unit, test it out, make sure that it's working, dispense the medications, and then we do a remote direct observation recording in front of the device. And the goal behind it is to eliminate home medication errors.
Got it. So this is all reported to their physician or their team of physicians.
The providers are not monitoring this information. So their doctors and nurses do not need to monitor this information. This is monitored by the health plan. They could have pharmacists, they could have med techs, or they could have case managers in the background that monitor the behaviors of these patients. So there's no additional burden on their primary providers or specialists.
Got it. So you guys have been on for 5 years. So there's data on how well this works. And please share with us what you
Well, I'm throwing this to you and your audience. What do you think the reduction in hospitalizations would be for congestive heart failure patients that are using an assisted robotic device such as this, that have multiple hospitalizations and ER visits? What type of reduction would occur from a percentage basis with the utilization of a HiDO device?
I would like to believe if the device does everything it's claiming it does, I don't know, 30%, 40%?
Higher.
60%?
Higher.
90%.
We had an 80% reduction of hospitalizations for the most severe congestive heart failure patients with mental health conditions, with diabetes, with underlying conditions that, frankly, are real for a lot of folks that are struggling at home. But it also speaks to how much these people are struggling at home, just trying to care for themselves. So Nobody really truly understands the caregiver burden, or if you don't have any caregiver, the burden is you and I. It's us looking in the mirror and trying to care for ourselves when we're struggling with a disease state. So a lot of these folks don't have anybody but themselves to care.
Over what period of time is this improvement?
So we have an 80% reduction over a 12-month period of time. This is not a 1-month thing. This is 12 months of data, not HiDO's data, the health plan's data given to us to report. So we have a fantastic white paper for any of your listeners at hidohealth.com. You could jump in there. You could read all through it, all the information.
So now that he's put that out there, everyone, the link will be in the show notes. So wait a minute though. This is pretty fascinating stuff. So, I guess what I want to know is if you have an 80% success rate in reducing hospitalizations for these very necessary, these disease states that are very necessary to be treated, consistently, then it almost seems like you don't need a sales force. This is a no-brainer. Where's the resistance? Where's the challenge in getting every payer to say, you know what, we're doing this. no questions asked.
Yeah, so I would never underestimate the power of this sales force. And the sales force to me are professional storytellers. If somebody comes to you and is not aware of the technology and they're not aware of the data or they're not aware of the story, then you need a way to communicate that effectively to the market. We are not DTC. We are not putting commercials on TV. Right. We interact one-on-one. And a lot of the relationships that we are growing and communicating to are often, the executive leaders that aren't able to, maybe read a white paper, or maybe they don't come across a video. So it's really incumbent upon, a dedicated, talented group of sales individuals to get that message across so people are even aware that this technology occurs.
Sure. What is the biggest, what type of resistance do you guys get when you engage a decision maker within one of these healthcare insurance companies?
That's a great question. Well, everybody's very, very excited about this technology. People are not aware that we exist. So the greatest resistance is getting to the right folks so we can message them so they know that this technology can alter the way they care for folks. The resistance is not knowing that we exist.
Okay. So basically when you do engage someone, you guys don't have any resistance.
People are very excited with what this can do. So sometimes in life, one thing can transform everything. And if people can care for themselves at home right now without assistance, think about the labor strikes. Think about the cost of hospitalizations and ER visits and the total medical spend that payers are already having to put money out. What if we can drastically reduce that spend on things that keep people out of the hospital so they can live their life happier and better without utilizing those high-cost services?
Sure. Can you share what type of clients you do have as far as the insurance companies?
Yeah, so we've been live at a Medicare Advantage health plan. We've done NIH-funded studies at Stanford University, where we're studying HIV-positive patients with an antiretrovirals, which we determined that a subtherapeutic adherence threshold had non-detectable viral loads. Okay. We've also done NIH-funded research with Rush University in Chicago with mild and moderate dementia, and this is where the next curveball comes right to you. What percentage out of 15, or a total number of 15 patients with dementia could set up a robotic device and take medications multiple times successfully? So let me repeat once more for the audience. How many patients out of 15 with mild to moderate dementia could utilize a new robotic technology with zero assistance from anybody else and then dispense the medications multiple times?
So you're asking me, the question is, how many patients can operate this, or what?
How many patients can operate and use the device out of 15 patients, a HiDO device, without being trained?
Well, if they have dementia, I would assume it'd be difficult. But based on your other statistics, I would say you guys figured out how to get them all trained.
I don't know. Out of 15, what do you think our success rate would be?
15. So
you ruined it for everybody. 15 for 15.
Like, Sam, I was teeing that up.
Yeah, usually you're supposed to go a little bit lower.
You know what, guys? I totally missed that. But let me tell you this: if I missed it, then the audience might have missed it too, and just went straight to the punchline. But go ahead.
Yeah. So imagine this. Imagine if patients that have cognitive impairment are able to utilize a device. And we made it so easy that patients with mild to moderate dementia are able to utilize this device. The implications for the greater populations that have chronic disease and polypharmacy are, there's wide range.
Yeah, it almost sounds like this device needs to be in every single patient's home.
The right patient's homes.
So let me ask you this, with this device, without sharing too much, I guess. What does it look like? What is the experience like from a patient's perspective?
Are you a coffee drinker?
No.
Not a coffee drinker. Okay, that's unfortunate. For all of your audience that are coffee drinkers, they probably are familiar with a Keurig coffee device, or they have some.
You know what? Even being a coffee drinker, I do have a Keurig.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we can re-engage in conversation. So for all of those people that are familiar with the Keurig coffee machine, you have those little pods in the background. What this looks like, and we did this by design, it's very similar to the look of a coffee machine and a hybrid of a Ring device. The idea behind this is we don't want to remind people that they're sick all the time. We wanted to put a piece of technology that looks nice in the home. So it's got beautiful colors. It's white and gray. It's got a gigantic screen on it. It uses Face ID to unlock. It's very easy to use. And we did that by design because we not only want people to be able to use the device, we want it simple, but we also want it to look like a piece of artwork within the home. Okay. So people aren't reminded that they're sick, but they want to use the device because it helps them, stay healthy and happy.
Okay. No, I mean, that's great, but, give us more. Like what is it? What's the operation like, Maybe walk us through one of these types of patients that's utilizing this device. What is the experience like for them? What's happening?
So I'm going to give you a patient. His name is Anthony. He's also on our website, Anthony and Helen. So Anthony was super active. He was eating right. He was playing rugby, lifting weights. I mean, absolute beast. But he had a stroke. And due to the stroke, he was paralyzed in half of his body. And a friend of a friend, now his wife, Helen, is struggling, trying to work full time and take care of her husband that is newly diagnosed with a stroke. There's a bunch of medications and all he wants is a little bit of independence and freedom. He rolls up to the device in his wheelchair, it's paralyzed and he's able to go up to the device. It unlocks. So he doesn't have the ability to even unlock the bottle, unlocks, dispenses the device, the medications, and then he's able to put it in his mouth and then stroll off away. So his experience with the device is really to give him a sense of independence and freedom. And also his wife, Helen, no longer has to be at home to give him the medications that he needs to make sure that he's in a healthy state from a cardiovascular standpoint. So that's one specific instance of the types of people that we can service.
Got it. So maybe I misheard. So it doesn't monitor, it doesn't take your vitals or anything like that. It only, this device specifically administers education with the goal of making sure no doses are missed.
The goal of the device is behavior modification device. So we need to know whether or not you missed or taken your medications. And the goal is to stabilize your medications so you have disease stabilization or regression. Now, folks that have cardiovascular disease, there's a thing called heart remodeling. So there's very effective drugs right now that you can actually improve the function of your heart if you take the drugs. Sure. So right now, there's hundreds of billions of dollars spent on R&D and pharma manufacturing to distribute drugs. But if we don't know if people are taking the medications as prescribed, then it's a complete travesty because hundreds of billions of dollars are spent a year on drugs that aren't being taken.
Right. So this device, the training with this device is you need to be fully dependent on this device for any type of medication. As long as you are, we can have a better chance of making sure you stay compliant.
Yeah, the HiDO device assists people that have chronic disease and polypharmacy to ensure that they're actually following the directions of their doctors and nurses as prescribed. So instead of having to remember everything of why am I taking this device or when am I supposed to take this device, we automate everything for you.
Got it. And what happened, or I guess with technical malfunctions, technology, all technology has its issues. How does it play into this space? And, how do you guys stay in front of that type of issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with this type of thing, we've tested tens of thousands of times. Now, the useful life of these products are probably not going to be more than 3 to 5 years. But what we've done with this, because of the level of severity of illnesses, we've taken it to the nth degree. The reason why we've tried this on dementia patients and patients with stroke, these were supposed to be stress tested cases. We didn't actually expect that to work so well. So because it works so well, we just opened up the markets to disease states that we would have never thought were possible.
Got it. And how does it alert the patient to take the medication, like a beep or is something worn, or how does it work?
Well, how about you give us some things that you think would be helpful to patients? How do you think patients would best respond to the different types of communications from an alerting standpoint?
I mean, the cell phone, right? A sound, TV, smart TV, if need be.
Yeah. So we alert not only the patients, but if they miss their medications, their caregivers or loved ones. And the fastest way to change your behavior, if you're married or if you have a significant other, is to alert your caregiver or a loved one that you missed your medications, and you will have a very quick change in behavior in regards to taking medications on time and as prescribed.
Awesome. And then, with this type of device, can you get your pills before it's time to get them? Or is it, it's locked and there's no way, there's no access, all in the hopes of modifying your behavior?
Yeah, great question. So there are guardrails on it. So if you had dementia, or if you were a bipolar schizophrenic patient, or if you couldn't recall whether or not you took your meds, it will not dispense certain meds if it's not within a window. But we usually do a plus or minus 2 hours. So that's fine. You could do that. But very specific drugs that are time dependent, they have to fall within a certain range because of the toxicity of the drugs, or because if you wait too long, you don't want to have some type of contraindication happen.
Sure. Wow. Okay. And, I'm going to be honest, this sounds like it would be a great consumer product. I can already think of at least 2 or 3 people that I know of that would benefit from something like this. Why is it not going that direction? Or is it just something that you guys, are saving for a different time?
Yeah, I think that there could be a time and place for that in the future. Right now, we're really solely focused on the folks that are greatest risk right now and that desperately need this type of technology. It's not to say in the future that a major company like a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon, might have devices like this where they're in every single home, similar like a microwave or a stove. So the entire public has access to something like this.
Charles, I'm gonna challenge you, man. I want a better answer, because this just sounds, from what you've described so far, I'm thinking, why in the world wouldn't anyone that has, especially the elderly population, why wouldn't they benefit from a device like this? And if it's as straightforward and sleek as everything you guys have created, why wouldn't you be working to get into the markets?
Why wouldn't we be working?
Why wouldn't you be working to make it a commercially available product?
Okay, yeah. So that's a completely different vertical. DTC, it's much different. When you have a startup, you have to be very mindful of the markets that you enter. If you try to do everything, you'll die as a startup. So you don't boil the ocean. You have to be very specific about your approach and the verticals, and you have to do things very well. Once you do things very well, then you can be mindful about the next approach. But if you try to do too much, then there will be no HiDO and we will not be helping anybody. So my goal is to help the folks that need us the most right now. And then once we get out into the wild, so to speak, and have enough funding behind us, because we are a startup, then we can be very mindful about our next steps in regards to increasing our awareness as well as our scope to deploy enough devices to service, all the folks that do have chronic diseases.
Wow. So, and you explained this earlier, but I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. And again, you discovered this opportunity to go to the payers because why was that the first notion again?
It wasn't the first notion.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
Absolutely
we need some history. Give us, I mean, as much as you can share. Give us a little bit about what the first notion was, and remind me on how you ended up with, we need to attack the payers.
Yeah. There's a couple different total addressable markets. It just depends upon where you want to go. So as you have alluded to, many people have focused on direct to consumer, and that is fantastic. And there's a specific marketplace for that. My background is not direct to consumer. My background is in enterprise hospitals, health plans, covering large patient populations. That's my expertise. So as a salesperson, you have to figure out, what is your bread and butter? Maybe if I had established relationships with pharmaceutical companies and we were looking at clinical trials and real world evidence and real world data, and I had established relationships within the ecosystem, that may have been our vertical that we're attacking. But I was very fortunate. This was actually my grand slam area that I'd like to address would be health plans because of the reach and the scope. But I didn't think, myself, I'd be able to even get to that place. but we've been very, very fortunate, because people understand what the technology can do to enable that population. But also we have some fantastic advisors behind us that have very strong connections with those folks. So, I would have never said to you, Samuel, this is our plan and this is where we're going to hit and this is where we're going to end up, because I would have been fooling myself. So
you discovered the opportunity as opposed to you came out the gates wanting to target.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I wish I could say, everything was exactly strategic, and we did 1 through 5, and this is how we got there. But that's far from the truth. I mean, I always wanted to get there, but you really need to have a team behind you to support you to get that to that level.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, now with this device, if it's from everything I've heard, this is like a no-brainer, right? But you did talk about how sometimes the sales cycle can take up to 5 years. Mm-hmm. Just give us a little bit on what major milestones are happening that's causing this no-brainer to take up to 5 years.
Yeah, I think no matter what the product is, whether it's a software solution, whether it's a device, there's other market factors that the decision makers have to weigh. And that could come down to budget. It could come down to reimbursement rates. It could become down to organizational disruption. There's a lot of different mitigating factors. There's strikes going on with providers. There's different contractual negotiations in the background. So all of those things tend to delay the sales cycle. In addition, you have to make it on, within the top 10 of projects to even be part of the conversation. And then it has to go through different subcommittees. So this is just not a fast process. And the larger the organization, generally speaking, the longer it takes to get a deal done.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. So, what's your biggest hope then within the next by 2025? What is your biggest hope and your biggest ambition right now with HiDO?
So my goal is to have full pharmacy integration and workflow, so patients get their medications directly from mail order pharmacy to their home, into the device, and then into the mouth. So what we want to figure out is the last mile that Amazon has done for shipping, but for medications. And it'll be the first ones to actually document whether or not people are taking or missing their medications real time. And the power of that is to completely transform the healthcare system, because once you know which cocktails and medications work best for different types of populations, then doctors can treat patients as such. Right now, they're using empiric treatment, which is based upon their medical education and their clinical experience. What if they can make decisions based upon real world data that they're getting amongst their patient populations?
Interesting. Okay. So right now with this device, you said the payers ship it to the patients, right?
We take care of that. We contract with payers.
I see. So the medication that goes into the device, the patient is responsible for setting that up?
So everything is pre-programmed. We have patented technology within each cap. Each cap knows medication name, dosage, frequency, and count. So kind of like a Keurig coffee machine, you would load up the bottle in the back and the device auto recognizes all that information. So the patient, whether or not they're cognitively impaired, doesn't have to remember that information.
And if a dose is changed by the provider, I'm assuming it's told straight to the machine.
Yeah, so that is something that is possible to do in 25, right? So right now we could do that, but that might require some additional designations and classifications. So whatever's prescribed by prescription is what we dose. But what you're talking about is titrating up or down,
right,
based upon people's reactions. And that has to go through the proper channels of electronic prescribing in order to alter those.
So if a patient gets their dose changed and they're using this device, I guess something's submitted to your company, and then can you guys remotely adjust, or do you guys send a tech out, or how does it work?
Yeah, we could remotely adjust if needed.
Okay, that's cool. how many patients would you say are on on HiDO right now?
Yeah, so we have under 100 patients that are on the HiDO device, and it stemmed from patients with terminal cancer to stroke to dementia to hypertensive diabetic patients to bipolar schizophrenic HIV positive patients. So we have run the gambit.
Got it. And this is kind of I want to ask it anyway. It's a strange question, but how are you able to manage I guess how large is the team that's managing the current 100 patients? And when you guys think of scaling, and let's say, by 2025, you're able to get 2,000 patients, is what's in place? Can it handle that? Or will you guys have to figure it out, restructure or hire?
Yeah. So the software is software scales. So I'm not concerned about that. And ultimately, we are not care providers. So we are not taking care of the patients. The health plans have either pharmacists or med techs or case managers.
Work in the software.
Yeah, they have access to the clinical dashboards. So for us, that's not the question. We will scale out devices like every other manufacturer, going to a third party manufacturer, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of units to deploy, and then the software itself. Once you prop that up, you have people behind it that are managed. But that's not our team.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, this is good. I mean, you seem like you're very excited and passionate about what's going on right now. I guess. How's it going right now? How's it going so far right now?
We are very excited. So I just came back from a healthcare conference in Las Vegas, and every single person that I spoke to, whether they're reporters, whether they're health plan executives or investors, everyone's very excited about the future of care, especially when it comes to assisted robotics in the home. I think there's a lot we can do to impact millions of lives. Now the question is, how fast do we get there? How do we create the awareness? And then who are the salespeople that are going to come along for the ride?
Got it. And right now, if someone's listening to this and saying, oh my gosh, I have to get involved, is there something that someone can get involved with, whether it be investment, whether it be getting hired by you guys? What opportunities are available?
Definitely. I would say the first thing to do is go to hidohealth.com, take a look at the videos and the testimonials, really take a look at the technology. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can look at my first and last name. It's Charles Gellman, Gellman. Feel free to drop me a note or connect. And then we can see where the conversation goes from there.
And everyone, all his information that he just shared right now will be in the show notes, so you will be able to get access. This has been fantastic, Charles. I love everything you guys are doing. We're gonna wrap this up coming pretty soon. But is there anything else you want to share with the audience? Remember, the audience listeners are about people that are trying to get into medical sales, people that are in medical sales, people that are leading the way within medical sales. Any last words you want to share with the audience now that you know who they are?
Yeah, I mean, to me, as when I started my career in sales, I would just keep learning as much as you can, especially with medical sales, because it's changing so fast. So, be curious, read up on what's going on with the different technologies, understand the reimbursement landscape, understand the struggles that currently exist and the challenges and the gaps, and position yourself for success. If you are not strong at a specific suit, if it's speaking, if it's your knowledge base, work on your gaps. So holistically, you grow and become stronger as a person so you can, communicate your message effectively. And that will separate you from everybody else out of the bunch.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Charles, we have one more thing to do before we let you go. It's called the lightning round. Are you ready?
I guess I am.
You have less than 10 seconds to answer 4 questions, and let's get started. All right. The first question is, what's the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
None.
Wow. And that's where you're leaving it.
No book. I am 100% focused on clinical research and reading journals and, going forward the business. So I read in bunches.
We can take that. What's the last journal you've read in the last 6 months?
I just read one with the Infectious Disease Society of America, and then I get thrown, journals every single day.
Oh, right. Fair enough. Best TV show or movie you've seen in the last 6 months?
I just watched the Foreman movie on the airplane, so that comes up top of mind.
Was it any good?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
All right. Don't spoil it for anybody. Okay. And then the third question, what's the best meal you've had in the last 6 months?
Ooh, I love everything that my wife cooks.
Ah, you just got all the canned answers, man. All right, last question. What's the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
Best experience. Geez, you're really making me reach on these things. Going and watching my son and daughter at the swimming. That was awesome.
Hey, what kind of swimming?
They do freestyle and breaststroke.
Man, so my son got into aquatic swimming this year, and these kids they're beasts. I mean, some of them have been doing this since they were 2 years old, 5 years old,
Yep.
and they're just like little professional Olympians. First meet, first time. He's only been doing this for a number of months, but because he's very diligent in understanding the strokes, he won his first meet because all the kids got disqualified.
That's awesome. Well, how old's your son?
He's 13.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's so cool. How old are your kids?
So my son is 10 and my daughter's 5. And yes, she's excelling pretty quickly. She's pretty young.
That's awesome. And your 10-year-old, how long have they been doing it?
Oh, I've been trying to get him in sports forever, and he doesn't stick to anything. So he's only been doing it for maybe like a year and a half.
Hey, that's a good time. He's getting better, of course.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, look, Charles, it was awesome spending time with you. We're excited to hear everything we're going to be hearing about from HiDO. We're definitely going to be checking it out, and I'm sure my listeners will as well. And thank you for being on the show.
Okay. Thank you, Samuel, for having me. I wish all your audience the best in their sales career.
Absolutely. And that was Charles Gellman. So pretty cool guy doing some very cool stuff in the med sales space. You've heard this episode, and I already know what you're thinking. You found something that was interesting. You're even more motivated to get a medical sales position, or you just want to figure out how you can work for a healthcare company. So I'm going to say this. If you want to work for a manufacturer in med technology includes everything. So if you want to work for a manufacturer of a pharmaceutical manufacturer, a medical device manufacturer, genetic testing manufacturer, or a diagnostic testing manufacturer, if you want anything to do in that space, whether it's salesman, clinical specialist, associate sales rep, support role, quality control role, execution role, then I want you to visit evolveyoursuccess.com. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com, select apply, fill out the application, schedule some time, make sure you make that appointment, and have a discussion with one of our account executives and let them show you how this can be a reality. This is why we do this. We do this because you only got one life to live, and life's too short to be wishing you can be somewhere when there are resources that can take you there. So that's what motivates me. My whole philosophy for anyone and everyone, and what I hope to do in the biggest way possible in this world, is remove barriers for people. Evolve Your Success, this company, is one that allows that to happen. The Medical Sales Podcast, this resource, is one that also allows that to happen and works in concert with Evolve Your Success. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of. And it's, of course, very energizing to trudge on regardless what we face. I think when you have something like that supporting you as a candidate that wants to get into a position, it makes the difference, right? That's why we have people that have been trying to get a position for 2-3 years even, and they can't or they haven't, and then they join the program and now they're working as the professional they've always wanted to be, because the support is real. And support, sometimes I laugh because support just almost seems like, I believe the word's taken a little bit too lightly, right? Maybe you can add some support, or we would like to support you. But I actually think that support is the reason why people get to where they go. If you have the right support behind you, you're limitless. You cannot be stopped if you have the right support behind you. And if you know how to find the right support, cultivate that support and keep it with you your entire career, sky's the limit. So again, you want to be here, then get to evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time, have a discussion with one of our account executives, and let's get you where you need to be. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that are doing things different in the medical sales space. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive-level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.